First of all, I'd like to say hello to everybody. My name is Miss Goodman, and I'm a teacher at Southside K-8. I teach Title I interventions there. And today we're going to be doing a book study on the book A Teacher's Guide to the Multigenre Research Project. And it was written by Melinda Putz. And this book kind of gives teachers an alternate way to conduct a research project other than just simply writing a research paper. Um, and we're going to go through this book, and hopefully you'll find some things that you can use in your content area when doing a multi-genre research project. Now, first of all, what is a multi-genre research project? Well, the book describes it as being a free-spirited project. Basically, what that means is there are really no strict rules when it comes to doing a multi-genre research project as opposed to doing a research paper. Now, in a research paper, you have to have a cover page, you have to have maybe an abstract. It has to be so many pages long, has to be about one topic. You have to have so many in-text citations. You have to do it in the proper format, whether it's MLA or APA. And with a multi-genre research project, it kind of opens up the project, and the only real limitations are your imagination. You do have to pick a topic, of course, to research, and you research it as you usually would. But instead of writing a long, tedious paper, you complete pieces about the topic. And the pieces are multi-genre. They can be poems, advice columns, diary entries, news articles, artwork that you've created, and alternate styles of writing. So you're not kept to a strict just text paper. Now, over here on the right hand side of the PowerPoint, you'll see this is written in, looks like French, but it's a poem, and the way they have written it, it looks like a woman wearing a hat. So this would be an example of one type of genre piece that you could include in your research project. Now, traditional research papers versus multi-genre research papers or projects. With a traditional research paper, it's one single piece, it's one single paper. Whereas with a multi-genre research paper, it's a series of cohesive pieces. They all blend together. They all are about the same topic, but they're all different pieces. With your traditional research paper, they always begin with a thesis. Usually in my college classes, you have to come up with a thesis statement to turn into your professor before you ever write the outline or start writing the paper. So you know what you're going to say before you start saying it, so to speak. And you know what outcome the research paper is going to have based on your thesis statement, or rather what you're trying to prove with your research paper. In a multi-genre research project, it begins with an interest. Now, the topic, as we'll talk about later, can be anything from people to events, basically anything that is of interest to you. Now, in a traditional research paper, the writer is usually dispassionate about the subject. Usually, the teacher or the professor will give you a subject to write about, and you can pick maybe a topic under the umbrella of that certain subject. Whereas with a multi-genre research project, the writer is personally engaged and their opinions are encouraged. With a research paper, you're presenting the facts about something. Um, and there's really not a lot of room for your opinions. When you write a traditional research paper, it's from a single perspective. Whereas with a multi-genre, uh, you can include many different angles on the topic. Traditional papers usually are only text. You may add a picture in or some kind of little graphic image. But with a multi-genre project, artwork, graphics, different design qualities are really encouraged to go along with the other genres. And usually, I know you've been there, I've been there, when you're told you have to write a research paper, your heart kind of sinks because you know how much work goes into writing a research paper. And it's usually viewed as just a chore to have to complete a research paper. Well, with the multi-genre research project, usually those become the students' favorite assignment because they are allowed to just really run with it. And like I said, their only limit is their imagination. We'll see some examples later of what I mean by that. And I can speak from personal experience. I was required to complete a multi-genre research project this semester. I had never heard of this. And at first, it was hard for me to come up with different things. But once I really got into the project, I just thought of so many different um, genre pieces that I could include. And it really became my favorite assignment of the semester. Okay, so here is an example of a piece that you could use in a multi-genre research project, and that is the recipe. And this is a recipe for a multi-genre project. It calls for the ingredients are one assignment, one engaging topic, electronic, textual, and human resources, concentrated effort, ample guidance, just enough freedom, your imagination, arts and graphics. And you can go on to read the rest of it if you want. But basically, these are all the different elements that go into completing a multi-genre research project. So the first thing as a teacher that you should do is introduce the project. Now, just like me, the students in your classes, I'm sure, have never heard of a multi-genre research project. And if you tried to explain that to the smaller students, um, if you teach a lower grade, when you say multi-genre, it's really going to just go right over their head. So you need to introduce the project in a way that your students will be able to understand. And so you need to explain the assignment. Well, the good thing is, as teachers, we can break those uh, different aspects of the assignment down into words that our students will be able to understand. So you need to explain the assignment, what they're going to be doing, tell them how many pieces to include in their project. They need to be able to document their sources. Now, for my project that I completed this semester, we were required to either include a works cited page or endnotes. And I found that using endnotes was a lot easier because a lot of my information came from the internet. And I could include the URL where I found the information and then kind of include a rationale of why I chose that and how that helped me to complete the genre piece. Also, you need to let them know a time frame. How long do you expect them to work on this project? Next, you're going to have them choose a topic. Now, like I said before, the topic can be anything from events, musicians, sports. The list really is endless of the type of topics your students could pick. And then have them complete a topic talk where they answer questions about their topic. Now, I want you to look at this picture here on the right, and you can see that it is um, not really what we would call a traditional um, poem, because we usually don't see poems like this, but the poem is about going outside and it being cold outside and it's snowing and they're going to freeze. But if you'll notice, the whole poem has been written out so it's in the shape of a snowman. Now, here are some examples of a topic talk that your students could complete once they've picked out their topic talk. And this particular example from the book is if their topic is a person. So they would list 5 facts that they already know about the person. Um, they would answer the questions like, how did that person impact the world? How did they triumph? Or why do we still learn about that person? And what their works were, what they accomplished. Then why are they interested in researching this person? And how can they personally connect to this person? The topic needs to be something that they can personally connect with, something they're interested in. And then there's a list or questions about resources. What kind of resources do they think would be useful? Um, and then they need to be able to answer the 2 questions at the bottom of the second picture of the 2 topic choices. Which one do you think you could find more information about, and which one do you really like best? Now, here are some alternate styles, and these are examples from the book. And I'm going to turn my camera off for just a second so that you can see all of the second page. This is what is known as a collage or a montage. It uses diverse elements such as crots, which are basically little bits and fragments. Stylistic elements, you can see that the fonts, she uses different fonts and she uses pictures or graphics rather, different size fonts to really explain the topic she's writing about. And these things are all patched together until it's one whole piece. Now, this collage was written by Catherine Vickery, and it is about a person's um, experience with the drug ecstasy. And you can see on the second page, I really want you guys to look at under dancing, the words faster just repeat after itself. It just repeats over and over and over. Then his eyes grow frantic and the effects of the drug take hold. And you can tell that the person in this poem has overdosed. And the final line of the collage, not poem, is what looks like a heartbeat that spreads out into a straight line, and you know the person has died. Now, think about if you wrote a research paper about the drug ecstasy. You could not put as much feeling into what it is like to experience ecstasy and get someone else to understand it with just a regular research paper. But with this collage and with the different fonts and the repeating words and the graphics, it really gives people a greater understanding of what someone feels like when they use the drug ecstasy and how dangerous it really is. Here's another alternate style, one that I particularly like. This is the crot. And what it is bits and fragments, words, repeating words, uh, sentence fragments. It can be 1 to 20 sentences or maybe even more. And it focuses on one certain topic. This particular crot was written by Amanda Finley, and the title is Gray Kansas. And it's about Dorothy and Oz. And we all know the story about the Wizard of Oz, and you can see how it goes from gray, and it says she looked around day after day. She always saw the same thing. Everything appeared to be gray. The sky, the house, the ground, Aunt Em's face, Uncle Henry's eyes, even her funny little dog. Dorothy's whole life was just gray. And notice on the second page. Well, let's go back to the first page at the bottom. The house seemed to be the only thing standing on the lonely land. When Dorothy looked upon the horizon, she saw at the top of the second page, grass, 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 grass. You can imagine she's looking out at the fields, and that's all she sees in every direction. And then, of course, here comes the cyclone. And it is written out. Cyclone is just repeated in the shape of an actual tornado. And it came and picked up the little gray house with Dorothy inside. And then plop is in all capital letters, large font, bold. And it says, when Dorothy looked out the window of the little gray house, she saw gray no more. And we all can relate to that because we have seen The Wizard of Oz, and we know at the beginning of the movie it was black and white, everything was gray. But once she lands in Oz and opens the door, it's gray no more. And that really gives us a perspective from Dorothy's point of view, or everything was gray, everything she saw was gray until she landed in Oz. Here's another alternate style for you. It's called the double voice, and it presents two attitudes towards a subject or two sides of the story. It can provide dates and then a commentator's voice. And this is about someone's first rave. I'm sorry. And at the top, it says by Mike and Liz. Well, this was really written by Catherine Vickery, but Mike's thoughts are in regular print, where Liz's thoughts are in italics. So you can see the double voice. And they have a totally different experience at their first rave. Mike, his line comes first. I walk in. Liz says, walk in. He says, and gasp in delight. She says, gasp in shock. He sees bright, colorful, pulsating lights surrounding him. She sees piercing lights that bombard her vision and they blind her. And down the last two lines, Mike says, I loved it. And Liz says, hated it. So you can see two different points of view on this party. Another alternate style is the labyrinthine sentence. And it is just a long, complex sentence, and it seems endless. And this was written by Tom Wolfe, and it is describing what it was like for test pilots in the 1950s who took jet planes beyond Mach 1. And I imagine as I read this, that maybe you would read it quite fast because the planes are going quite fast. Um, to take off in an F-100 at dawn and cut in the afterburner and hurtle 25,000 feet up into the sky so suddenly that you felt not like a bird but like a trajectory, yet with full control of 5 tons of thrust, all of which flowed from your wheel and through your fingertips, with the huge engine right behind you. And on it goes. He's describing this, and you notice there's not a period until the very end. Ideas may be uh, separated by commas or some dots, but it's just one long sentence that describes an event. Next, we have the list, and it's a series of items that are all related in subject matter. Now, the top picture reminds me a little bit of the labyrinth sentence because it looks just like one big long sentence. But once you get in there, it's really crots or fragments, excuse me, and they're all just listed together. The second picture or bottom picture looks more like a list, an actual list, but lists can be done either way. Now, the first one is about the summer of 1968, and it says acid test, free love, Detroit Gypsies, the drugstore cafe, protesting against the war, Tim Leary, the Grateful Dead. If you're going to San Francisco, make sure to wear some flowers in your hair. Excuse me. And it just lists all the different things that were going on in 1968. The second one I really like. It's about Walt Whitman. Then he grew up as a boy on Long Island. Sea, gulls, sky, shore, stones, roses, salt air, tides, farms, dusty roads, mockingbirds, horses, summer clouds. Later, Brooklyn. Later, Manhattan. But always sea, stones, cattle, birds, lilacs. Even as the metropolis paved its way toward mercantile grandeur and urban glory. I really like that, and you can kind of see better in that second example of the list that all relates back to Walt Whitman. Next, we have a 6-room poem. Now, this one I really liked. I included a piece like this in my multi-genre project. In room 1, or the first stanza, you're going to write about what do you see. So this person has written about a day at the circus. So she has included some of the words in bold print to draw attention to that. So room 1, first stanza, what do you see? She describes what she would see at the circus. Room 2, second stanza, how does the light look? So she's describing what the lights look. The lights are flashing, but she also describes the glitter, the sparkles, the dazzle of the costumes. And you can just imagine the lights hitting on that glitter and sparkles and making them shine. But then everything's dark but the single spotlight. Room 3, what do you hear? You're going to describe there, if you're at the circus, what are you going to hear? Then room 4, what question do you have? And she writes, what acts are going to perform? Will Tom Thumb be here? Room 5, how do you feel? And in this stanza, number 5, she doesn't just describe how she feels, but how everyone feels. And you can kind of just feel the same thing. Everyone's anxious and waiting. And room 6, or stanza 6 of this poem, you're going to write a line that sums it up. and you can repeat it over and over and over again. It can be a single word that is repeated over and over again, but I particularly like the way that she did this line that sums it all up. The show is about to begin, and then the next line it's a little larger, and the next line it's a little larger, and the next line it's a little larger, and you can just kind of hear the roar of the crowd and how everyone is so excited and anxious that the show is about to begin. Here are some other examples of alternate styles that you could use. You could use an obituary format, and this young man is from West Virginia, and he writes an obituary for his 1992 Jeep Wrangler 4x4, and he includes the different facts about the Jeep Wrangler. It says a green Jeep Wrangler, 7 years of running, of West Virginia, died Thursday, October 28th, 1999, at the base of the Appalachian Mountains in Charleston, West Virginia. You can almost see this car dying on him there. Next is a press release. You may want to write up something that looks like a press release for this. And it's about Charles Lindbergh. And it is about a mechanical heart that was developed by the aviator and French surgeon. And this is an event that actually happened, but instead of just writing it out in a research paper, all the details of this event, it's typed up as a press release. Next, we have a birth announcement. I particularly like this one because it is a birth announcement for the Statue of Liberty. Has the full name, gender, weight, country of birth, permanent residence, who the parents were, and then it has a little short clip of information about the Statue of Liberty. After 2 years of awaiting the arrival of the Statue of Liberty, President Grover Cleveland accepted the enormous lady on behalf of the American people. I really like that one. There's a lot you could do with that particular genre piece. Next, we have an advertisement, and this is an advertisement for Maya Angelou's books. And of course, the bookshop is not real, but it does list some of the books that Maya Angelou has written. And it also says they even carry some of her personal favorites, like James Baldwin and Charles Dickens. So it lets you know some information about Maya Angelou, what are some of the books she's written, and what authors she liked to read as a kid, and then what some of her personal favorite authors were. Next, we have a driver's license. This is a driver's license that may have belonged to Judy Garland. It has, of course, a fake driver's license number, what her address was when she was born, her height, her weight, her hair, her eyes, what kind of vehicle she drove. So that gives us some information about Judy Garland. And then here are even more genres. And the list, like I said, really is kind of endless, and it's only limited by your imagination. On this list, we have wheels, we have letters. You could write a business letter or a personal letter. Song lyrics. You could write a song about your topic. You could do one as newspaper article. Maybe you could type up some medical records for a certain person from history. A telephone conversation that two people may have had with each other that gives you more information about the topic. Let's see. Contracts, biographies, resume, and I did include a resume in my project, and it was fun to kind of make up some of the information based on my topic. Now, art and graphic design is a big part of the multi-genre research project. You can include pictures, graphics, or paintings, drawings, things you personally have done that gives you more information about the topic. Now, one way that you could assign a multi-genre research project is having it as a group project. You may not feel that your students are ready to complete a whole project on their own. Well, you can assign it as a group project. And first you would create the groups. And what you want to do with any kind of groups, and you guys know this as well as I, is you want the group to be varied. You want students that can help other students um, and can add in elements, um, all of their own. And this is true for a group project as well for this multi-genre research project. When you're creating the groups, you may want to have a student that is really good with artwork. You may want to have a student who is very creative, has lots of great ideas. You may want to have a student who is very good at writing poetry, different things, and put them in the group together. Now, when they present their project to the class, one way they could do it is as a reader's theater. When they all get up and they present their piece to the class as a group. And one other thing that you could do is have some peer evaluation going on. So as one group is up presenting their project, the other students would kind of do a peer response form like you see in the second picture. And then there's also a handout that you could use for group discussion. And just where the students can kind of jot down their name, the topic, and some notes that they take as you present, and then you can have a discussion about it later in class. Now, this multi-genre research project can be applied to all content areas. It does not just have to be for the reading teachers out there, for the English teachers. When you think of a research paper, chances are you're going to think, okay, they're going to be doing that in a reading class or something, maybe literature, something pertaining to composition. They're going to be writing research papers. Well, this research project can be done in any class. And here are some examples of how this can be done. The first, for your math class. This is a math poem that I found, and the source is listed in my references at the end of this PowerPoint. And I really like this math poem. I'm a math person anyway, but it has the equation, and it says a dozen, that's 12, a gross, 144, and a score, that's 20, plus 3 times the square root of 4, divided by 7, plus 5 times 11 equals 9 squared and not a bit more. I really like that. For science, we have a poem about the prophase part of mitosis. And it said the cell, I'm not feeling quite right. My chromatins wound really tight. Both centrioles are at opposite poles, and my envelope's fading from sight. So if you are a science teacher and you're teaching about cell division or um, the whole mitosis or meiosis cycle, this may be something you want to use. You might want to have your students write a poem about each one in the group, write a poem about each particular part of that process. Music. I really like this. This is kind of reminds me of a crot with just bits and fragments. Um, Soundtrack of our lives, the middle eight, the interlude, the melody, the beat, the build, the drop, from folk to pop. It makes you move your feet. Art. This is a genre where really you are free to express yourself in any way that you would like. And this is describing a person. She is kind and forgives you. She doesn't mind if you're not like her. She is free. She is unique. She is different. She is art. Now, that could be describing a person. It also could be describing what art is. She's free. She's unique. She's different. She's art. Social studies. Now, I found this picture. It's from the Washington Times. And the title of this picture was The Death of the Soviet Union. And in the moon, it has kind of a little shadowy face of Ronald Reagan, and it has a tombstone of the Soviet Union, 1991. Physical education and health. This is really it's been called a word cloud, um, a word wall, anything like that. But it's where you take all the important aspects of a topic and you present it in a certain shape that goes along with your topic. In this case, it's all about healthy living, and the shape is an apple. Now here's a list of my resources. Like I said, I use the book, A Teacher's Guide to the Multigenre Research Project, and then the pictures I used here are all the resources for that. And once again, I want to thank everyone who agreed and signed up to participate in this book study. I hope that you have learned some things that you can use with your students next year when we get back to school and get back in class. And it does not have to be exactly like the examples that I showed you. You can break these things down, make them easier, um, and really change them in a way that fits your classroom and fits your students. The point really of the multi-genre research project is getting the kids to research a certain topic that they're interested in, letting them find different ways of presenting the information instead of just writing it all out to a single paper, and letting them use their imagination. And you'll find if you choose to use this particular project in your classroom that your kids, they may buck up on you at first. But once they actually start writing on this project and completing the pieces for this project, they are going to really enjoy themselves. They're going to learn a lot. They're going to have some fun. And they're going to complete a project that they can be proud of. This is Amy Goodman, and I hope you're all doing well. Don't forget to email me back and leave me some feedback on this book study.